All right. Um, Full disclosure, I know that I'm only releasing them every other week and I'm calling them double sized, but they're not only double sized in terms of the length. I'm going to start having incredible guests, people that have opinions about pro wrestling that you didn't even know watched pro wrestling. And so I guess I'll just introduce this first guest. He's the owner of My Pillow, and he's become a sort of political advocate of the right wing. I think that's safe. I hope I didn't offend you, Mike, by saying that. But it's Mr. Mike Lindell. Thank you for joining me for this first interview that we've ever done on Full Disclosure.
Stephen, I'm really, really happy that you were able to have me on your show. Listen, frankspeech.com. That's where everyone needs to go. You're going to find out that Trump won 82 to 68 million. But listen, it goes further. We'll talk about wrestling, but Hugo Chavez. Okay. I'm sorry.
Mike, I want to get your opinions because I have something to say, but I want to get opinion of somebody else. A lot of people didn't know that you're into wrestling. Did you hear about AEW? They had their pay-per-view, but the real story that's taking over everything isn't what happened at the pay-per-view. It isn't Punk winning the unified title in Chicago. It isn't MJF making a return. It's about the media scrum, as they're calling it, that happened afterwards, where Punk badmouthed the Bucks, badmouthed Adam Page, and possibly others. And then there was a physical altercation between CM Punk, his best friend and trainer Ace Steel, the Bucks, and Kenny Omega, were supposedly Ace Steel hit Nick Jackson with a chair, left him laying, and maybe bit Kenny Omega. Can you believe all of this stuff? It's just so crazy, isn't it, Mike?
I mean, this reminds me of when Jim Acosta came to CPAC, tried to slander me. And listen, I'm interested in the business end of AEW, but I did see the squirmish at the end. And Steve,
Yeah.
CM Punk, he's playing everyone. He's playing everyone. Everyone's tuning in now. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get attention. Do you know that Walmart doesn't sell My Pillow? Do you know that Fox News will not air my commercials? Fox News, Jimmy Kimmel had me on as a guest before, and now he won't have me on again as a guest. Let me get back to the wrestling. Why have vice presidents eat people? I don't know. That's why I go, me. I'm the owner of My Pillow. Then you got secretary and people that make the pillow in China. Speaking of China, hacking into our voting system, that's why I'm doing the machine. And make all the jokes you want, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Colbert, whatever. All I hear is mockery. Steve, I'm a person too.
Mike, I get that you're a person. I'm curious. Maybe I'll focus you with the question. Are you on CM Punk's side of this or on the elite's side of this? It seems like people are taking one position or another.
People probably don't understand this about me, Steve, but I am an avid wrestling watcher. There are people called veterans, and there's people in the middle. Kenny Omega has not got to legend status yet. CM Punk is the one that I'm listening to. CM Punk's the one in the Octagon. Jericho's the one who actually understands that our country is being taken over by liberal dumb shit that don't know what the heck they're talking about. And I'm sure you're real progressive, Steve. But listen, just hear me out. Go to frankspeech.com. I'm starting a new podcast, and it's called Pillow Talk with Mike Lindell. We're going to be talking about today's topics. We're going to be talking a little sports, and then we're going to be talking convention voting system. You know how Hugo Chavez had this plan in mind for 10 years before he died, and he talked to Trump. Venezuelans are eating rats. And that's a socialist country. You want Bernie Sanders running this country? We have to get Trump back in office this month, or our country is doomed, Steve. What was the question?
I was just asking about all the stuff that's happened at eight. Okay, so I'm glad you're a wrestling fan. I just want you to answer one wrestling related question directly, Mike or Mr. Lindell, whatever you prefer. I'm gonna just focus you here. So, what do you think Tony Khan should do now? Should CM Punk get punished since he
No,
Okay. So what do you think should happen at this point?
Steven, they're going to have the best ratings they've ever had on Wednesday night, and it's thanks to CM Punk. It's thanks to those. I mean, Tony Khan. They're letting the inmates run the asylum, and it's working because everyone's talking about it. They're not talking about Roman Reigns set the record for 2 years. That SmackDown was crap.
So you really do watch wrestling? Cool. This is great. We're talking wrestling now, Mike. So you brought up Roman Reigns. What do you think about Triple H taking over there?
Sometimes you gotta make a change, Steve. You gotta make a change. And that's why we gotta make a change in president. Biden is in the Oval Office sleeping. He's sleeping like a dog. And we got a man running around here that can do something for the economy that John Cena could do for AEW. What if John Cena and Randy Orton both went to AEW? That's the kind of impact that Trump could have on this country. We're talking gas prices going down to 250, Steve. You gotta be with me, and Steve, I would love for you to be my first guest on Pillow Talk. Look for Pillow Talk. Please put a link in the description. Jimmy Kimmel, he had me on. He didn't mention FrankSpeech.com. He didn't have anything on the screen that takes you to FrankSpeech.com. There was nothing about the Dominion voting system. And you're looking at me like I'm crazy. I had a problem. I had a problem, and this country has got a problem. We're sick, and we have an infection, and Trump is our cure. I'm not well, Steve. I'm not well, but I really hope that you can have me on again. I mean, look at me. I'm a patriot. I'm a maverick. I'm a fighter for this country. I bleed America, Steven. I bleed America. I bleed wrestling, and I just really want to be accepted, and I just want this podcast to go well. That's why I came on.
Well, thanks, Mike. Be sure to check out his podcast. You said it's called Pillow Talk?
It's called Pillow Talk with Mike Lindell. You can get it wherever the podcasts come out. I don't know, the YouTube system or the Bluetooth. I don't know. My kids, they're on the damn tablets. And, we didn't have tablets growing up. We didn't have, what the tablets was? Mom gave me a Xanax and said, go sleep it off. Mom drugged me, let me sleep a while. You know what I ended up doing? I ended up falling in the mud, laying there sleeping, and the closet boy or the janitor or whatever, he had to call my dad. My dad came. What did your mom do again? Give you the Xanax? Dad give you the beers, mom give you the Xanax. It was a different time, Steve. But I am actually heading to Walmart, who doesn't sell my pillow anymore, to protest outside. And I know there's going to be MAGA people because it's Savannah, Georgia.
Well, thank you, Mike, for being on. And thank you for your opinions about everything.
It's been a pleasure.
Ain't nobody talking when I'm talking, fellas, so shut the fuck up.
The dog is belly up.
Pile driving headlock, got you in the gridlock. Catch me in the back lot, I can make the map right. Backdrop, hip toss, abdominal stretch. Now they wondering who we bombing on next. Yes.
The dog is belly up.
To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women. That is good.
Oh, Stephen, there's one more thing I have to mention.
What is it?
I love you.
The dog is belly up.
If they don't give me proper credit, I just walk away.
Patos locos forever.
Forever!
Forever.
Fuck it. Full disclosure, news and commentary number 178, 179, and 180. Fuck a duck. This is in the morning. I got a full night's sleep for the first time in probably a week. So it's cool. It's good. Oh shit. People are messaging me, as happens a lot. I forget to do unboxing. This is going to be a triple-sized episode. What the fuck does that mean? It means I'm going to start off with a commentary that I've been wanting to do. Really inspired by the CM Punk Elite shit, but it definitely applies all over the place. In wrestling and elsewhere, but really in wrestling. I'm going to do this unboxing shit first, though. Let's see what this is. Thank you for the people who send me shit. I really appreciate it. The fuck? Bro, I get the weirdest shit. Hippie. I'm a hippie. Thank you for that. My kids will probably be stealing that shirt soon, but I'm going to wear it at least once. Try to. This one, ominous. Ominous. I always get nervous because, again, I open them, as you see, without knowing what they are. So, shit, you could send me anything, and assuming I can open the package, for fuck's sake. Larry and I, by the way, on Tipping Point tomorrow night, are going to have Ricardo Ordaz Jr. What? Yes, the promoter for Mucha Lucha, doing big stuff. By the way, I gotta say this. The petty and the tiny and rumor-filled minds from supposedly nice guys in the wrestling business trying to spread rumors about Ricardo. It's just something that I heard. I gotta tell you, some of the guys who put out this image of being the nicest, most helpful guys in Georgia wrestling are some of the tiniest, pettiest, most superficial pieces of shit. And I'm sure this is striking to the heart of a couple of people who are listening to this, who realize I'm talking about them. And I'm glad you know that I'm talking about you. I think the idea that you would try to besmirch Ricardo, who by all accounts is fucking winning. And he's winning because he's actually promoting, because he's actually wired into the communities that he is appealing to, that he is putting out a product that people desperately want to see. He is outdrawing the next three biggest promotions combined. And he's doing gates that any of you would absolutely kill for to have a year's worth of one of his show's gates. So fuck you. Fuck the people who are trying to besmirch it. And the fact that they're doing in this kind of undercutting I think Duke Ingram is finding out slowly, and Rob Rod to an extent, what Larry and I already know, which is people's attempt to give us information in order to use it as a cat's paw against people that they perceive to be rivals and enemies. They don't know how to handle that yet, right? The fact that Duke is sort of running with this, like, it's a shoot thing. And you know what I'm talking about. I don't ever do this thing. I try to avoid doing this thing where I try to pretend to be smarter than everybody by telling you what's a shoot and what's a work. I admire the fact that Southern Honor is going through such great lengths to get a thing going. I think it's fucking cool as shit. I think that it's going to pay off huge at their anniversary show. We're going to talk more about the Southern Honor anniversary show. But I mean, Rob Rod and Duke Ingram, they're fucking new to this fucking game of people trying to feed them information in order to sort of manipulate a narrative so they can get things out publicly, either to help a show, but most of the time to get at somebody else. But I gotta say these people who are feeding these fucking rumors to Duke and to others to try to besmirch fucking Ricardo, go fuck yourself. And again, it's the guys who purport to be the nicest guys in the world who love spreading this shit around. They fucking love it. That was a lot bigger than I thought I was going to go, but it's the triple-sized episode. What is this fucking shirt? The initial thing looks cool as shit. Let's take a look. 1, 2, 3, go. Oh my... Is that Sasha Banks? That's cool as shit. One of the women that I see romantically, if you want to call it that, it's more like fucking to me, but one of the women that I see romantically, let's give her a bit of a shout. Holy crap, I shouldn't have moved the webcam. Who's supposed to send me a new poster soon to refresh the old one? It knows that I have an affinity for Sasha Banks, and so it sent me that shirt. I think I suspect she's the one who sent it to me. I'm trying to comment below or get a hold of me if you know something about the shirt. I just remember there's something special about the shirt itself, like it was a limited thing or whatever the fuck. I don't know. Anyway, glad to have that shirt. It's really, really cool. So a couple of people have noted that I've done really cool shit with my kids lately. Rage Room. We went shopping at the old Spirit Halloween. Saturday, we're going to David Bowie extravaganza at the IMAX. I'm really excited about that damn thing, man. We're going as different forms of David Bowie, so that ought to be a lot of fun. Yes, people are like, man, shit's taking a long time to come out, and I have things lined up to write. That's part of my goal this morning, is to get the next article written, which is the 10 best comebacks in Georgia wrestling. Fucking cool as shit, right? And then the next article I want to write is the true story, combining all of the different witness accounts and sides of the story being given about the fight that took place between CM Punk, Ace Steel, and the Elite and all that shit. I'm going to write out that fucking fight because there's no footage of it. There's not even a picture of it, which is unforgivably bad in wrestling. So fuck it. People like these fucking fights that I write out, so I'm going to write out that fucking fight and how it really happened. You are welcome. Yeah. So let's get into the fucking first major commentary. I'm going to put this phrase into your mind, I hope. Are you about the show or are you about the self? Are you about the show or are you about the self? And right now I can feel assholes clenching, people already getting defensive. You got to be about yourself. You got, of course, dipshit. But I think if you look, people are looking for good guys and bad guys and different stories, like the CM Punk thing and other shit. I think it comes down to this, though. Are you more about the show or are you more about the self? Of course, you have to be about the self. You have to look out for your own career. You have to do the things that are right for you, etc., etc., etc. Cliche written bullshit. However, I've always found that people who were more about the show than about themselves, it just they tend to be better people to work with. They tend to have better careers, etc., etc., etc. And they tend to have more confidence. I think people who are more about how can I make the show better overall? How can I maximize the effect of what I can do personally to make this my segment of the show better and thus the show overall better? It just tends to go better. So if you look at the CM Punk and the Elite shit, for example, it's a great example, right? And people are debating about this person's right and that person's right. The truth is, everybody in that thing is a dickhead to one percentage or another. You can determine that percentage and who's more at fault or who takes on a bigger lion's share of the percentage of the fault, in my opinion. And again, I realize I'm trying to attach objective standards to a completely subjective thing. Is who's really about the show and who's really about the self. Now, the tricky thing is you can appear to be about the show, but the way you go about something is purely about yourself. So it's not really about the show. The method at which you deliver information and the method at which you try to make things better is actually more important than what you're saying. The number of people who deliver good information, or what at heart is good information, in a way that is smarmy and doesn't really have a chance of influencing anybody's thinking who they're talking to, is legion in the Georgia region. Ooh, that rhymed. There's a lot of people who dispense a lot of fucking advice under the guise of being locker room leaders or just guys who are trying to lend their experience to you. But at the end of the day, they're really not trying to improve anything, or they would go about it in a different way. They're really about showing that I'm really smart and I'm going to show you. And as I say that out loud, what names popped into your head immediately? Yes, those people are assholes. And more importantly, they're ineffective. And more importantly, they're really more about the self than about the shows. And if this is hitting you in the heart, or if you're finding the need to be defensive and you want to fight with me, or if this is angering you, I would challenge you to self-reflect and go, is anything that I'm saying right now, does it really have merit? And if it does, can you think about changing your approach? CM Punk, I would argue, has always been about self more than the show, which is not to say that he doesn't do things reflexively that are to benefit the show and other people. He's willing to job when it is appropriate and that kind of thing. But I would say his methods don't work to make the show better, and in fact only cause massive disruption. I would say the EVPs, by and large, are more about the show, but are also incredibly selfish in many, many ways. That it comes down to, and this goes for Cody Rhodes as well. I think all of them are assholes in the extent that everything is about them being able to point back and go, we did this. We did this thing. Us, me. We created this thing that's better. But it's, my oldest rule is show, don't tell. And I think it's very telling that all of these people that we're talking about ultimately love telling you a lot and showing you very little. And I think that goes for a lot of the people dispensing advice in Georgia wrestling. Whew. That was a brutal way to start. But it was a lovely way to start, was it not? IWE 291 drawing. I couldn't be there again. Hopefully my lawyer fucking leans on this insurance company and gets him to fix my fucking car. Um, a great show by all accounts. A significant show, and Cruel defeats Joe Black. That's a big, huge thing. Um, what can you say? They're going to be back in 2 months, and I fucking hope to be there. Uh, Deep South Wrestling is going to be in Little Five Points. They're doing their thing at 7 stages. I can't tell you how crazy that is. Um, I declared that Deep South was sort of the kingdom of South Georgia. But if they're going to be doing their thing at Little Five Points, they're not in South Georgia anymore. That's for damn sure. I imagine Nightmare Factory, now that they're kind of doing their thing in South Georgia, eventually they're going to start running shows, I would gather, and then maybe they'll take over South Georgia. Who knows? Um, but Nick Patrick refereeing his last match, I think that's exciting shit. It's amazing what Deep South has done, really capturing the sort of imagination of the boys as well, similar to the way Southern States has. I think Southern States has done it on sort of a grander scale, but Deep South also showing signs that they're going to be around a little while. The fact that they're doing their shit at 7 stages theater, I can't even get over that. I definitely looked in doing shows at 7 stages at one point. I think people who are kind of nervous about the fact that is it going to be a good venue to see wrestling? I would imagine it is, if I'm remembering 7 stages correctly, which I most certainly are. Yeah. West Georgia Wrestling. Um, huh. They got about close to 100, and then they said 120 by the second match. Um, we got to talk about Southern Honor. This was a great go home show. I don't think there's a lot of doubt about that. Um, they're going to have their big show pretty soon, right? Beginning of the month. Um, I've already been told it's amazing the coordination that's going on between Larry, Duke Ingram, Jabari, Rob Rod, and all the rest of it as far as who's covering what show. They're already planned that weekend out of spreading themselves around. Who's going to be at what show? Who's going to be at Action? Who's going to be at so? Because folks, multiple shows are happening on the same day. Um, like there's a Sunday where you've got Battle Slam and you got Southern States and you have other shows and then you have that district show that had such a great debut, all happening on the same fucking day. This is one thing I would suggest. This is commentary number 2, right? We've got 3 full disclosures packed into one. You get 3 commentaries. Um, I think it's wonderful that there are so many shows. I've talked about that often, how great that is. But I think people need to start being mindful. And this isn't for some respect our turf shit. This is just from a fucking practical level of being able to get the wrestlers you want on your show and stuff like that. I think people need to start being a little more mindful about when are other people running shows and coordinating. Because hurting your own crowd and your ability to get the wrestlers you want on your shows is real. And that doesn't mean that guys can't double shot. You can't slightly askew the times at which you start. I mean, all that shit can be done. I'm just noticing there's a lot of people fucking tripping over each other. And some of that is inevitable. I mean, there's really only 3 or 2.5 prime days to run, and that's Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays to an extent. But because nobody's running weekly, except for the returning fucking Pro South, fucking mind blown, this Friday. They're back doing their shit. We're going to have Ace Haven on, by the way, as well, for part 2 of that interview, as well as Ricardo. I can't describe how fucking huge this is. And by the way, in a month and a half or so, voting is going to start taking place for the Georgia Wrestling History Awards. Or at least the nominee process. What the fuck? And a lot of people are hitting their stride at exactly the right time. fucking wonderful, is it not? It's fucking wonderful, is it not? Superstars Fan Fest. I'm going to say something about Larry Goodman real quick. That was shitty, Rant Bell. Do better. That's still shitty. This thing has gotten so beat up over the years. That is a proper Rant Bell. A lot of y'all have talked shit about Larry Goodman. A lot of you. But all the people who talk shit still have to come back to Larry to get shit that they want. And I want you to keep that in mind. And the truth is, as great as it is having Jabari at your show, and Rob Rod, and fucking Duke, and all the rest, fucking you want Larry at your shit too, if you can get it. I'm really proud of the fucking writing taking place, and all these guys writing reports and doing such a great job and fucking improving. But never forget, the fucking gold standard is Larry. And I shouldn't say this shit. does I would imagine the people who watch Full Disclosure and watch me get excited when I say shit like I shouldn't say this shit, because they know it's followed by the conjunction but, and then I'm gonna fucking say the shit, and this is true. Larry is old. I'm old, but Larry's older, but keeps in incredibly good shape. That motherfucker still fucking works out and shit, as do I. By the way, come on. Come on. Even with fucking working 90 hours a week, your bro is jacked up. I love it. I gotta stay fit for the ladies. Fucking my hair. What is it fucking doing? Look at this Reed Richards shit going on. I got some fucking gray coming up in there. Looks good. I actually like it. Sorry. Larry. We've had to have discussions about what happens when Larry decides he doesn't want to do this shit, which, by the way, doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon. There was a time where Larry was going to step away from this shit. You can probably trace when that was, when I went into overtime mode about, fuck, we need to let Larry know what he fucking means to us, and we need to improve that fucking site and get it to be fucking fun for him and everybody else reading it again. And I think that's been accomplished like tenfold, right? But at some point, it's going to stop Larry's involvement, either because he's not going to be with us anymore, or he's going to decide he doesn't want to do it anymore. So Larry and I have had to have discussions about how is this thing going to continue, because it is part of his legacy, but more than that, it's an integral part of the Georgia wrestling scene, and I think that that's fucking great. I think it's great that Duke Ingram, for example, is obviously somebody that people want to talk to more and more and more and more and more. By the way, I think it's also cool that James and Duke of the fucking video game have been really honest and forthright and transparent about, we're going to have to push this thing back. Here are the reasons why, but they're pushing the thing back. People will recall how harsh I was about that fucking game. I should explain that. I never did explain myself, but I'm going to explain. I was more harsh about the wrestlers that were seeing it as some kind of end game to their dream, when it was clearly just data being inputted that happened to have their presence involved, right? This isn't the same as being in the AEW game or being in a WWE 2K game, right? This was like apply and you get in, which is not the same. But since then, I think he would call us friends, and I would call us friends too. I'm friends with Duke, certainly. Duke and James support the Patreon. By the way, people keep adding on, even though I haven't done anything on Patreon in quite some time. That's changing fucking today, by the way. Now that I've figured out that this laptop not only travels, but I can figure out ways to fucking post shit and record shit from my various jobs, at least 2 out of the 3. That shit's gonna happen. Because I feel very inspired. I still keep up with wrestling. I still watch way too fucking much of it. And I certainly talk about it every single fucking day. But anyway, you know, Duke and I have struck up this conversation, and it's fun. It's fun for me because as he gets sort of deeper into the Georgia scene, and people are recognizing Duke's talent, people fucking love his writing. And it is really fucking good. And you know, the presence that he and James have because of this video game. I mean, the hundreds and thousands of wrestlers that they're putting into this thing. Um, you know, I just wanted to mitigate people's expectations, and I think I've been proven right on that. Do I believe at this point that the game is going to come out eventually? I do. But, you know, the massive undertaking of it, having to deal with the fucking wrestlers from the shitbird to the great, having to deal with all the bullshit of then this wrestler got caught, you know, trying to pick up an underage girl. Then this wrestler got caught doing this shit and having to drop people out for various reasons. Homophobia or whatever the fuck their problems are. I mean, it's crazy, right? I admire their massive undertaking. And Duke being part of the GWH team is fucking huge. It's huge. Rob Rod being fucking the guy that's doing most of the reports. And doing the videos about the preview of the weekend shows. I mean, this is all great fucking content. And then Jabari being involved is really significant. I just fucking love all of it. And it frees me up. I'll just be honest. It frees me up to do the shit that I really want to do, which is writing the articles that I want to write and doing shit like Full Disclosure. I really fucking am enjoying these things. And again, I love being right. And anytime I do anything, I take on a project, there's always people who fucking doubt it, right? Or people that have something shitty to say about it. And unlike even Larry to a point, I think I'm so comfortable dealing with people giving me shit that I don't have to say that I'm like, oh, look, my haters like to. I don't fuck. You ever see me say that fucking phrase? Except perhaps ironically, you don't but I legitimately have them. I legitimately have people who like conspire to fucking work against me or who send me messages hate filled. Like that shit's real. But I just see it as fucking part and parcel of everything. When people try to expose me and get me in trouble for being arrested and all that shit, I of course it fucking bothered me, but at the same time I fucking love it because other people talk about living in people's heads. I do. And by the way, anybody that you would regard, if you had a list, someday I can't wait to put out this list of enemies who have been fucking crushed or ousted from the wrestling business. The fact that I can make a top 10 list is fucking wonderful. It's fucking wonderful and unbelievable. Is that not incredible? Look back at the Full Disclosures when I did a written one of the people that I blatantly hated, who blatantly hated me. You know what they all share in common? None of them are involved in the fucking wrestling business anymore. But I am. And Larry is. And Larry wants to keep it going, even beyond himself, which is the very definition of legacy. It's a great thing. Just like I said, are you more about the show or more about the self? What's the percentage there? And what that says about you as a wrestling person? I think another way to look at it is, how long are you going to be around? And when you look at various groups, the promoters, the bookers involved, how long are they going to be around? I think that will also skew your viewpoint. Being able to approach questions from different angles. It's not a bad thing. Um, it's a smart thing. I had an idea recently, for example, because I get tired of reading this like fucking Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant shit online, where people stand for one of them. And but the standing thing I hate because then people feel the need to denigrate the other side. It's the only way we know how to argue. It's the only way we know how to discuss things politically, religion, otherwise. It's as the great Sun Tzu once said of a book that a bunch of you have pretended to read and never have. It's not enough that I win, everybody else must lose. Right? So it's not enough that you're a WWE fan. It's that you have to tear AEW down. By the way, the people that are there's this trend of people beginning to embrace ignorance again. Can we stop that? Rob Rod, not having contact with national level wrestling companies and being proud of that fact is fucking embarrassing, and you should stop. Saying, I don't care to look at the thing where most of the Georgia wrestlers are finding work. Um, is nothing to be proud of. It's one thing if it's a fact, great, but to crow about the fact that you do not watch AEW and barely watch WWE is nothing to be proud of. It's nothing to sort of purport there as some kind of clout. I think it's kind of embarrassing, actually. It's kind of weird. But that can be on you and you can be weird. I don't think that you garner credibility as somebody who writes about wrestling and gets a great deal of their joy about wrestling when you don't know what the fuck is going on in wrestling as a general thing. Because the hopes and dreams of many, if not most, of the people involved at the local indie level is to be able to be at WrestleMania as a performer and a paid performer, or being in AEW, or being in Ring of Honor or Japan, and getting legitimately paid to do these things. And it would behoove somebody as a wrestling person to seriously know what the fuck is going on. And that means more than just reading a reflexive story. It means watching the shit. Because if you don't watch the shit, then what the fuck are you talking about? Then any opinions that you have in regards to those promotions, you're just literally talking out of your fucking ass. And there's already enough people that do that. There's already enough people we have who talk about wrestling who know precious little about it. And we don't need more of that. Going back. Let's look at this GWH. So Superstars Fan Fest. Again, another one of these guys that would talk shit about Larry and me and Georgia wrestling history that nonetheless realize the value of getting your shit up there. Superstars Fan Fest is happening. I guess that thing of we're never going to do it again is bogus, but it is what it is. Pro Health Wrestling returns. There's the Rob Rod report. Renegade is back. Chapter 2. Successfully run. Cool to see. Classic City and the Southern Violence split. I gotta tell you, both of them doing very, very well. Kudos for the Dragon Con show still rolling along and being fucking awesome. And morphing slightly. I think Slim J needs to take a lot of credit for keeping that thing cool as shit. And they're going in the direction for that show increasingly every year that they should be going, which is more cosplaying stuff, more fun, and less circle jerky inner circle stuff. I think it's great. I think it's great. Anarchy Wrestling, they're setting up for a big, huge thing as well. The fireball spot on Hankins, fucking awesome. GIPW continues to roll. They got the crowds back up to 100. All fucking good shit. AML Wrestling. We're going to have Tracy Myers on soon. That's a goal for us. Can't wait to talk to. Uh, Platinum Championship Wrestling is rolling into Swamp Rules. At one point, I was trying to be there. Now it doesn't look like I can. Just fucking too much, man. I'm just working so fucking much, and I appreciate the people who are expressing concern. Like, you got to work less. You got to take time to live life. Fuck your cliches and platitudes. I got real fucking bills, and for the first time, I'm able to sort of meet my financial obligations and then some. And it just takes me working. As a friend of mine, Ray, put it, until the wind hits my back. And the wind hasn't hit my back yet, meaning I'm not making the kind of money at any one source that I need to make so I can drop the other ones. So between all the side hustles and the 3 legitimate jobs, 2 of which are full time, it is what it is. Um, Having that balance with the kids and stuff is a challenge, right? Luckily, my ex-wife, I mean, she handles the logistical stuff during the school year for the most part. Um, but, you know, I don't know if you've garnered this from those who follow me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. The kids are good. They're really fucking good. In any case, I'm excited about the shows coming up. You got Crossroads for Southern Fried. You got Southern Honor doing their anniversary show. Swamp Rules for PCW. Action had their big thing because they're related to the SCI, but they continue to roll forward. I would caution this from the people because we're in a time of peace, right? We don't really have people feuding with each other, fighting with each other, not on a real level. And companies are tending to work together more than work separately, which is great. But I would caution this. If you find yourself constantly trying to undermine other promoters, other bookers, and other promotions, constantly trying to undermine, constantly trying to frame arguments to make yourself look better, if that's taking a great deal of the percentage of your energy and mental capacity, um, you're fucking failing. That you can do much better. And I hear about all this shit. And I find myself constantly laughing that the people who would purport to be the biggest successes nonetheless obsess about the success of others and spend a lot of time convincing uh, people, trying to convince people who have what they would deem to be influence into saying that other people's success is in fact not a success. It's fucking weird. Third and final commentary. Howard Brody, guy in the Florida area, one time president of the NWA, I believe, wrote a book called Swimming with Piranhas. Terrible title. I read that book. Howard Brody's been involved in wrestling for a long time. And his book, to me, is one of those books, wrestling books, that I would put in a certain category. I'd put Jerry the King Lawler's book in there as well, which were books that had a lot of great information, but ultimately were hard reads because you got an insight into who the people were and what really made them sad, and you had to read about that as well. This is not me saying I don't want to hear about people's mental health issues, but hearing how lonely Jerry the King Lawler was on one level and the lengths he would go to sort of alleviate that loneliness is shit that it made me uncomfortable. And Howard Brody too. I will say this about Howard Brody. He's a guy that by all rights maybe shouldn't have been involved in the wrestling business by certain people's standards, but nonetheless found his way in there and made those mistakes, that any promoter worth his salt makes, right? He paid every due imaginable. He had dreams crushed. He managed to make a mark. He had his hugely embarrassing moments. Uh, Howard Brody is someone who always comes up in conversation between like me and Ron Yami whenever we hang out and have lunch, which is something else I need to find a way to do again. Um, But Howard Brody, his death actually hit me a little harder than I thought it would. And I think it's because I understood. When I read his book, because I read fucking every wrestling book I can get my hands on. Doesn't matter how good, doesn't matter how shitty. Um, I read them all that I can. And I contacted him immediately and told him how brave I thought the book was, which is a backhanded compliment, right? If you're telling someone that they're brave for sharing their story, that means there's aspects of this story that you found kind of cringy. That's the truth. And I did find aspects of his story really cringy, as the kids would say. But he laid it out there. And he's got a legacy because of that book. And the people that know him cared for him. Or even the ones that didn't care for him but acknowledged, like, that motherfucker was of some note. I thought what Bill Behrens wrote about Howard Brody was really wonderful as well. By the way, I love this role of Bill Behrens, by the way. Sharing old Wildside stuff, sort of like smartly coming in with stuff that's really topical by sharing old stuff, and then having something to write about and something to say once in a while. Bill Behrens is another reason I think the Georgia scene is so important and significant. These guys that chronicle this as you get older, and you know, a lot of people who I see the demographics of the people who like listen to me, and it's a lot of younger people. It skews very young, and that's because it's a lot of young wrestling people. But just know, I mean, when I say these things like take the fucking pictures, that's a mistake that I made that I don't want you to make, right? Take the fucking pictures. And don't listen to this like, oh, you're a mark if you fuck it. Get the pictures, you'll be glad you did. Have the conversations, you'll be glad you did. When in doubt, make the date. When in doubt, make it fucking happen when you can, how you can. And I think in this age of cancel culture, where people are afraid of making the wrong move for the fear that it will be their last move, in a weird way, I think the opposite is true. I think making up for the mistake in the right way is the thing that's rarer. I think that that's an important lesson. Logan Paul was wrecked, right? Did these shit things he wasn't supposed to, was starting to lose subscribers, losing his national fucking sponsorship deals. But that guy's come around. And I think it's because his apology at first was done to save face and to try to save the sponsors. But then I think he slipped into actually maturing and apologizing sincerely and actually making amends. And I think that's led us to a point where Logan Paul is back, safe to say, right? I think these people who have been canceled, some of them deal with it by just ignoring it. And then eventually they get back. And some deal with it by genuinely trying to change in the proper way. And then some of it do it in this fake way. But I don't think anything has changed of any significance. I think there's always been this idea of getting canceled. It's just now it's more formal. And now it can tend to be a small vocal group on Twitter that can try to make it happen. But I think there's always been this idea of if you step out of bounds, you're going to get punished for it in some way, shape, or form. And I got to say, every great success story usually starts with, and then I hit rock bottom in some way, shape, or form. Howard Brody, some would argue, some jokingly and some in a mean-spirited way, that he never did anything worth note. It's not true. He had the stories. And again, if you've never read that book, I'm sure you can find it electronically for very cheap or free. And his insight and angle on the wrestling business is different than most wrestling people's because again, the way he got in was different, the role that he served was different. And in a lot of ways he was a whipping boy. But even the guy who gets punked out, and he got fucking punked out. Even the guy that people hold in small thoughts, right? Because in many ways he was sort of like a petty fucking wrestling promoter sleazeball type. I'm just being fucking honest because these are the kind of things that people tend not to say about people once they're dead. However, he did something really wonderful, which is he established a true legacy for himself. Not just through having a book that will be around forever, but making a significant impact and mark on the wrestling business as a guy who most would say had no right to do so. He did it. And as I saw people stumbling over themselves to find the nicest thing they could say about Howard Brody. Um, I have the benefit of just telling you my experiences with him and my impressions of him. But I will also stumble a bit and say the nicest thing that I can say about Howard Brody, which is he wrote me back that it obviously touched him that I read the book. It obviously touched him that I recognized and told him expressly, um, you can feel good knowing that you have a place in the pantheon of professional wrestling, which is what he really wanted to happen. And he made that happen. Legacy. It's the most significant part of having children, leaving them some kind of legacy. Um, and in the wrestling business too, what's the impression that you're going to leave? And the people who pretend they don't care about legacy, there's the same people who would probably say that they were more about self than about the show. Um, being more about yourself is about individual accolades and individual benefit. And obviously, that's a lot of the reason that people get into pro wrestling and stay in pro wrestling. But at the end of the day, the impact that you have overall is about legacy. And legacy, ultimately, is about greatness. And the times you get to touch it, the significance of the level of greatness that you help be a part of, or support, or create. Howard Brody may have never created greatness, but he certainly touched it, and he certainly supported it at times. It's a pretty fucking great legacy to have. How are you having contact with greatness? How are you supporting and being a part of something bigger than yourselves, which is also great? And for a very select few of you, how are you creating greatness? Not just in wrestling, but in your own lives. And if the answer is, I'm not, then go figure out how to. This has been Full Disclosure.